People are anxious, not knowing much about what COVID-19 is. COVID-19 stands for Coronavirus Disease 2019. It's when it was first discovered. We call it novel coronavirus because remember, coronavirus is a family of viruses. Novel means new. This is the new strain of coronavirus. This is what the picture looks like currently. We've been talking a bit about it. So far around the world, over 95,000 cases have been confirmed worldwide. That number on the top of your screen right here, it's sitting at 97,993 confirmed cases. Over 3,000 deaths so far. And we were talking about over 87 countries have confirmed cases of coronavirus and one territory. When we're talking about the territory, we're talking about the ship that was docked in Yokohama in Japan, the Diamond Princess. Remember, we had lots of stories about that ship there. We know about the two South Africans that have tested positive for coronavirus, but subsequently we're told by the Minister of Health that they have now tested negative. So they will be on their way back to South Africa very soon. So let me just give you some broad strokes here in terms of what we talk about. Let's start here in Africa. This is what we do. So we know 7 countries in Africa have confirmed cases of novel coronavirus. We'll start from the top here. Morocco, it's where Noma Bolani was reporting from. There they're reporting 2 cases of coronavirus. We go to Tunisia, 1, 12. Algeria has the bulk of infection in terms of novel coronavirus, sitting at around 12. Egypt was one of the first countries in Africa to record novel coronavirus, COVID-19. 3 for them. Nigeria has 1, Senegal 4, and as we know, South Africa sitting with a sole case of coronavirus. Now, let's try to go back up here. I want to talk to you about Europe. Yesterday, we heard that in terms of the European Union, 23 member states of the European Union have confirmed cases of coronavirus. So we're talking about this area here. Let's go to my right and talk about Asia. China. China carries the bulk of infections. Over 80,000 people have been infected in China. But we heard from the ambassador to South Africa, the Chinese ambassador to South Africa, that number is declining. I guess it's a positive sign which tells you that both clinically and at a policy level, things are happening in the right way. So that virus, in terms of the death rate, totally in terms of worldwide death rate, it's sitting at above, mortality rate sitting at above 3%. So that's the issue worldwide. So China carrying the bulk of infections, sitting at around 80,000 cases of novel coronavirus. South Korea, a big issue in terms of South Korea. Now, South Korea has one of the highest cases of coronavirus outside mainland China. So we're talking about that area there. Over 5,000 cases of coronavirus there. And we're told there's about 40 deaths, over 40 deaths in South Korea. We know the amount of deaths happening in Italy. The issue in Italy, we know that the person that came to South Africa was in Italy, contracted the COVID-19 virus there, then came to South Africa. How he got through Tambo International Airport is because he didn't show symptoms. He didn't show signs at that stage. So that's what we're dealing with there. Remember the Princess, the Diamond Princess, the cruise ship that was docked in Yokohama, sitting around there in Japan. There was a major issue. We know that 2 South Africans, was confirmed with COVID-19. They have now, since we're told from the health minister, tested negative. So they will be on their way back. Let me bring in man in the know in terms of the markets. What does this all mean in terms of the markets? Arabile Gumede.
No, we don't shake, remember.
We don't shake.
Yeah, we're going to do the feet thing. We're going to do the feet thing. Yeah.
That's safe, I guess.
Apparently so.
Look, I guess we take this serious. The president says, look, don't panic, but be vigilant.
Yeah.
Light humor, of course, but it's having effect on the market.
Hugely so. Hugely so. Look, very early this morning, waking up to the market picture, nothing less than 1.2% down for that entire Asian market. And that's symptomatic, really, of how things are faring across the globe, really.
Yeah.
In Europe as well this afternoon, right now, things are going downward. We saw a bit of a spike, a bit of a reprieve somewhat as well in markets over the past 2-3 days. And a lot of that is based because in Australia, as you saw, those 66 cases, out in China, of course, having all those cases as well, even in Japan, even out in Europe, what we're getting there now, those central banks saying we're going to pump money back into those economies so that the economy is able to flourish, continue to spend, even if a lot of that spending is actually going to happen online because a lot of people aren't going to want to go outside, Blaine. So how exactly are you going to spend that money? Well, online shopping becomes a massive craze, right? So the online community becomes really, really huge. And the guys like Tencent will certainly make some gains there, which then brings us back into South Africa because Tencent is partially owned by Naspers, right? So in South Africa, you'll see that the likes of Naspers will begin to gain, which means that on the local front as well, we will get a surge in things like online deliveries and the like as well. Our market also going down this morning, and unfortunately following the trend of the rest of the world.
Look, when we look at this map, a lot of our trading partners, South Africa's trading partners, are infected or affected by COVID-19. How is that going to play in over the next couple of months?
Look, one thing for sure is the auto industry is one that has already come out and said that there's bound to be a massive, massive fallout, at least 5 billion rand at the very minimum. Right? That could rise right up to around 50 billion rand even so as well. 16 billion rand was how much in terms of components we saw the auto industry plug into South Africa's auto market, and that was just out of China alone. Right? So Asia accounts for about 60% of exports, imports rather, to South Africa in terms of imports of manufacturing parts for auto vehicles and the like. And if that grinds to a halt, it means that South Africa's auto industry grinds to a halt, which equates to around 30% of South Africa's manufacturing. We already saw GDP slump to that 1.4% decline in the fourth quarter. Yes, technically in a recession. Now that is bound to continue even further. Then we get the global aspect. As much as $113 billion could be lost in the airline sector alone then, right? And that's a massive decline.
I want to talk about that, and because it has a ripple effect on oil prices as well. Let's talk about tourism as well, and just look at the map. Some of our biggest tourist supporters, so to speak, China. We have India with 29 cases. We've got Europe,
out of Germany, the UK with that 118 as well.
118, 23 member states of the European Union have reported coronavirus. Talk to us about the impact on tourism.
Look, one thing's for sure is you're going to get less numbers traveling out of those countries. Even the likes of Iran out in the Middle East as well out here have certainly said that people are not going out of that country. So if you're not going out, that means nobody's coming in, right? And we're not allowed to go out, so we're not spending affluently either. So yes, in the end, what you may find is that our deficits may get a little tighter. But that's only because nobody is willing to spend the money. Nobody is willing to come out and actually help. Tourism is a very, very frugal community as well. Very easy to perhaps kick things off. But the moment there's a small crisis, we saw that with our passport scenario, right, and our bridge certificates. The moment you crunch things up just a little bit, you begin to cramp the space, and South Africa begins to suffer. We are already at the bottom of the continent, right, and it's very difficult to spur tourism for us already, and that is bound to see a massive, massive fall as well. Another 3% odd to GDP being lost just because of the coronavirus.
The president yesterday got off the plane talking to us about some of the impacts, possible impacts of COVID-19. And speaking about this ailing economy that we have, and the last thing we needed is for COVID-19 to affect the economy. It will. How?
Look, one thing is we just spoke about tourism, which will impact a massive part of that economy. We spoke about the auto sector. It means that consumer spending completely drops off in many ways because many entities will be looking to try and cut off just how much they're able to spend as well. We saw Aspen even come out with news saying that their consultants and their consumers out in China have been idle for 2 months straight, which means that the biggest pharmaceutical company on the continent, Blaine, is unable to get in imports from China, which means that they're unable to supply the medication we may need for other infections, which aren't necessarily related to coronavirus.
Yeah.
So we see the spread of even more communicable diseases, right? So unfortunately, it doesn't bode well at all for South Africa. Many industries are bound to fall off, and we could see even bigger losses in terms of growth.
You speak about the pharmaceutical companies, then we know that they've been meeting with, among others, the President of the United States just recently, looking for a vaccine. People are asking when. We know that vaccines take years, in the making, but the conservative estimates are that we are about a year away from a potential vaccine. Talk to us about OPEC and what are they doing in order to mitigate it in terms of corona.
So obviously in a case like this, what does it mean then, right? What happens? I mean, let's explain just the basics and the fundamentals, right? So currently the price sits around $50 a barrel and going even lower to around $49 a barrel. Why that happens? Demand continues to get sapped out of the economy. We're no longer buying or consuming as much because we're not as busy. We're not using it for as much fuel. The world doesn't need that much, so we import less, and we're trying to decrease the amount of communication we sort of have with other countries. So because demand goes less, the price goes lower to try and get you to buy a whole lot more. Now, what that means is OPEC is going to say, okay, how about we cut demand? Rather cut supply, should I say? And the more we cut supply of of oil itself, then it hopefully pushes the price back up to around $50-$55 a barrel. Now, Saudi Arabia can survive with oil at around $30-$40 a barrel odd. It's the likes of Nigeria, the likes of Senegal, all of these nations that are probably going to suffer the worst when it comes to the oil price decreasing even more. For us, well, of course, in the long run, you'd hope it bodes well, just because we could see a petrol price decrease. But let's remember that the rand is also weakening, right? 15 rand 69 odd early this morning against that US dollar. Blaine, we started the year at 14 rand. It's only March. And already we've lost more than 3% on that local currency.
COVID-19, the novel coronavirus, has its tentacles in lots of aspects of our life. Arabile Gumede, sir? Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Not only are you handsome, you're knowledgeable as well. Arabile Gumede, there is our economics anchor. We're going to bring him in now and then, just to get an update of what we're talking about here. You spoke about tourism. You spoke about air travel, which is actually, affected by COVID-19. People are traveling less. So that affects, aviation industry, affects tourism. We're going to bring him in now and then to get you up to date of what's happening around the world with regards to COVID-19. Quick break, more news next.